Everyone, my name is Selina Idlas. I'm the educational technologist for the Centre for Teaching and Learning, and today myself and Kyla, Lutz from the exams office are going to be taking you through Ventus for instructors, or if you're an admin in a department. So for those of you who don't know what Ventus is, it is the academic accommodations portal that is being developed in-house at Queen's. It's been developed in collaboration with many departments across campus, including the Centre for Teaching and Learning, the exams office, ITS, the Vice Provost Teaching and Learning, and Queen's Student Accessibility Services. And the main reason for this is that every one of these groups needs to use some part of Ventus in the accommodations process. Let's just move forward. So Ventus is a portal. The exams office can log in, instructors can log in, students can log in, and Queen's Student Accessibility Services can log in. And depending on the tasks that they need to do, they can access the information that they need. So in terms of instructors or admins within departments, the benefits of using Ventus is that it helps organise the student accommodations. So before we had Ventus, students were emailing their letters of accommodations directly to instructors, and there were multiple different methods being used to store the accommodation letters, depending on which department you were in. And so this just centralizes that whole process. So instead of letters being sent to instructors, instructors can log into the portal and see the students in their course organized by accommodation. So for example, if a student has an accommodation that they're allowed 15 extra minutes for every hour on a quiz, all those students who have that accommodation will be listed together. And the benefit of that is that when you need to go into OnQ or the learning management system to add that accommodation to a quiz, it just makes it quicker and more effective for you to do that. It also allows instructors to export and download the student information by accommodation type. So not only to go in and look at it, but also to, you know, get a spreadsheet of all the students with their accommodations. Like I mentioned previously, students no longer need to email documentation, and instructors have no need to create their own spreadsheets based on those accommodations, which was very time consuming trying to organize the students. And then on with the exams office, it allows instructors to provide the exams office with the information required so that they can help with assessments, like provide support for the assessments, provide the accommodations. And it also provides instructors the ability to upload exams and documents without having to go to the exams office. So for example, a student who's taking a written exam, you know, previously an instructor would have to go to the exams office and take in that paper exam. Now an instructor can just upload it into Ventus for the exams office. Like I said before, all students, instructors, QSAS, exams office and staff can log into their own portal. So what's the process like for students using Ventus? So when a student logs into Ventus for the first time, and they can log into Ventus from the OnQ homepage. There's various places they can get access to Ventus as a tool. And what they do is they complete the online QSAS intake form. So they submit that online, and they also, with that information, submit their medical documentation. A student then waits 4 to 5 business days to receive an email from their assigned advisor, their assigned QSAS advisor, who will inform them of who they are and send them a self-booking email so that the students can book their intake appointment. At the intake appointment, the student gets to meet the advisor, and they get to agree upon the accommodations that they are going to receive. Once they then, can use Ventus to view all the classroom accommodations that they've been assigned. And also they can look at all the assessments that they are writing with accommodations. Now, if they want to opt out of using those accommodations, they have the option to opt out of both classroom accommodations and the assessment accommodations through Ventus. And then they need to check back regularly as instructors add more assessments as the term goes on, for information updates on new assessments. Any accommodation, any assessment that is not listed in Ventus, students should email their instructor to find out how the instructor will meet their accommodation. So, that maybe Kyla will give us a couple of examples of those. So that's the process for the students. In terms of, as an instructor, adding an assessment to Ventus, there are 2 different types of accommodations as assessments as far as Ventus is concerned. There is paper-based, so those are the ones that are going to be delivered in person or online, or as it's called in Ventus, scheduled. Okay, so any assessment that is paper-based, these are going to be assessments that are going to be delivered by the exams office. So the exams office will schedule, administer all accommodated in-person paper-based assessments. So the exams office will take care of everything once you have, added that assessment, uploaded the paper. That's for the accommodated students only, but they will take care of scheduling them and then making sure that they receive the allocated accommodations. So as an instructor or admin, what you would do is upload or deliver the assessment to the exams office, so that paper-based exam. The other type of assessment is the online assessment. So that could be an on-cue quiz, an on-cue midterm, or if you're in the Swiss School of Business, the D2L quiz or midterm. So in those cases, the exams office will review the class schedule and accommodations for students and schedule the date and time for the assessment to take place. So in the case of an accommodated student who cannot take an exam in the morning, and your regular class is usually scheduled for the morning, the exams office will be able to help you by looking at that student's schedule and finding an appropriate time for them to do that exam. Okay, so they will schedule it for you because they have access to all the students' class schedule. So yes, the exams office will take care of the scheduling and time of assessment. And as an instructor, you will add the accommodations to the assessment online. So if you're using an on-cue quiz, for example, you're going to add that special access to give them the extra time. And then the last type of assessment is self-administered online assessment. And in this case, you know, you're not going to add the assessment to Ventus. And as an instructor, you must inform students how you are going to meet their accommodations. So we're just going to quickly go through the different types of assessments again, just to kind of clarify. So when do I use Ventus? Okay, so do you have an assessment in term, a quiz, a midterm that is in person, paper-based? You require the exams office to administer the accommodations, schedule the date and time for accommodated students, and set the location. In this scenario, you're going to use Ventus to upload details and documentation for the exams office. And you're going to add an assessment in Ventus delivered by the exams office. The next type is, do you have an assessment in term that is online, and you require the exams office to schedule the date and time for accommodated students? If you can answer yes to these, you use Ventus to upload the details for the exams office. So what you're doing in Ventus is you're uploading the details of your actual scheduled exam, which is for the rest of the students in your class, and then they will find times for your accommodated students that meet their accommodations. In this case, you're going to add an assessment in Ventus scheduled by the exams office. And then, do you have a final exam that is paper-based and you require the exams office to administer accommodations, schedule the date and time for accommodated students, and set the location? In this case, final exams, you go to Ventus and you go to the exams office web form. So there's a different process for final exams, okay? All other assessments do not add details to Ventus. You will be required to implement and communicate all other accommodations outside of Ventus. But you can use Ventus to see the details of the student accommodations you need to add. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to Kyla from the exams office, and she's going to show you some examples of what Ventus looks like.
It says I've been blocked from sharing my screen.
Oh.
Sorry about that. There you go, Kyla.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. All right. So as Selina said, I'm Kyla. I'm from the exams office. I'll be going over kind of a broad introduction to Ventus. As always, if you have any relevant questions, you can reach out after this or during the Q&A session. We're here to help no matter what. Ventus is still relatively new, so we understand that there's probably going to be some feedback. So Ventus launched in May of last year, and it has actually been a really big success so far. We've really found that people have taken to it quite quickly, so that's always good to see. So Ventus is a powerful tool for managing accommodations, and once you understand the process, you'll be able to enter accommodations for administration or scheduling by the exams office in a quick, expeditious manner. First, you're going to log into Ventus through the Instructor Portal. So I'm using basically I took screenshots because otherwise you'd have to flip between a couple different profiles. So you'll find that the stuff is static. It hasn't changed. So if you have any questions about stuff that's different on your page than it is on mine, then absolutely let me know and I'll walk you through it. So the Instructor Portal entrance page looks like this. It will take you through to your course list. So you'll probably only have 1 or 2 courses. We have a ton because we were using a test instructor. So you'll just want to look at the course that you are looking to add an assessment for, and you'll just click into it. Once you've clicked into it, you'll reach a page that looks like this. This is the landing page for your course. It'll consist of 2 sections, the summary of student accommodations, which allows you to view letters of accommodation, assessment accommodations, classroom accommodations, and practicum accommodations, and the assessments requiring accommodations page, which allows you to add and manage all assessments requiring accommodation for your course. We're going to be looking at the assessments requiring accommodations section because that's the section where you actually add your accommodations for us to assist with. So as you can see, we have the assessments requiring accommodations page here. We just have a reminder here that 1 or more students in your course have assessment accommodations. Most of you will have this. It's very rare that we have students who don't have assessment accommodations in a course. And then this is a little reminder that your final exam request is going to go through the web form and not through Ventus. So this is from last summer, but it still holds the same. It's this link here, and that closes on September 18th at 4 p.m. So if it's your final, then make sure you've put it through here. Everything else we're going to be popping into Ventus. So there are the 2 different kinds of assessments that Selina already chatted about. There's delivered by exams office and there's scheduled by exams office. So an assessment delivered by exams office is an assessment that you want our office to administer. This means paper-based timed assessments, so not essays or group work. We don't have a way of proctoring those right now. We will schedule the assessment, apply accommodations, print the assessment for you, and coordinate proctors. You're only required to enter the accommodation or the assessment into Ventus and provide the assessment paper for us to deliver. Assessments that are delivered by our office include quizzes, tests, and exams that take place through the term. Mid-year and final exams still need to be submitted through the exams web form as usual. So essentially anything that's paper-based and that you don't want to handle the accommodations for, you can pop it into Ventus and we'll handle it for you. Most instructors upload their tests to Ventus for us to print for them. Some of them do like to print on their end just because they have color image heavy exams or anything like that. That's totally fine too. You can drop them off at the exams office in that case. Scheduled by the exams office, as Selina mentioned, is an assessment that you'd like us to schedule, but that you will ultimately administer yourself. This is most often online timed assessments where you'd like us to move students if they have a time of day restriction for their accommodations. We will manually touch each assessment and ensure the student accommodations are in place, but we will not actually administer the assessments. So essentially this function is here so we can make sure that students don't have conflicts for whatever quiz is going on, that they don't have they don't have a no morning exams rule and your exam is in the morning. We'll move it for you. We'll find an appropriate slot. So scheduled by is just if you want them scheduled, not if you want us to actually administer anything. If you do not want us to touch your accommodations, do not enter them into Ventus. If you've not been around for a year or so and you remember the old exam accommodation system, so EASE, there was an option for self-administered exams that no longer exists. So if you enter it into Ventus, we're going to assume you want us to do something with it. So if you don't want us to touch it, don't put it in Ventus. All right, so we're going to look at how to add an assessment delivered by the exams office. So you're going to click on the blue Add Assessment Delivered by Exams Office button. It's actually right on this page here. It's this little guy here. You're just going to click on that, and that'll bring you to this pop-up that we see here. This is going to ask you to provide some preliminary information within the Ventus page. At this point, you have 2 options. You can either copy an existing assessment, changing only the date but not the details, or you can create a brand new assessment. So copy is just right up here, and then create is right down here. We'll go over this in a little bit more detail. So I'll go through copying assessment first. It's actually quite easy. So if you've already input a assessment, you're just going to click on the drop down alongside copy. A list will populate with existing assessments for the course. Select the one that you'd like to copy. So for example, if you have a quiz that happens every single week and you just want to copy it across all weeks of the course, you can do that here. You can just copy the existing midterm and do it as many times as you need. It's super easy. Ventus will populate the create section with the information for the assessment chosen, including the type and duration. So for this one, it's automatically said that it's a midterm and its put duration is 90 minutes because that's what the original exam was. And it's also kept the format as paper. You can't change the format once you've copied an exam. It's got to be the same format. So paper, paper, online, online. And then you're just going to click on the select class section drop down to choose the class sections you'd like to apply the date and time settings to. You can select all of them, or you can select only the ones you'd like. So for this one, we've selected all of the sections. If you wanted to have section 1 right at a different time, section 500 right at a different time, you could definitely do that. You would just copy them into different assessments. Once you have selected the class sections you want to use, you're going to enter the date and the time of the assessment, or you can remove them if you want, like you accidentally added a section, you can totally do that. Once you're sure that you have everything correct, you're just going to click the checkbox right down here just to say that you have to provide us with the assessment materials or we won't do your exam. And then you can click this little green submit button down here. One thing to make note of is that when you copy the assessment, the date will automatically populate to, I believe, 2 weeks out from the day that you're on. So if that's not the day that you want your assessment to happen, you need to manually change it, or else it will go in as that date. Most of the time we'll catch it and we'll email you and be like, hey, is this right? But sometimes things happen and we'll just assume that you've done it correctly. But so just make sure you're double checking when you're copying an assessment. For creating an assessment, it's almost exactly like copying, except that you need to select the type and duration for the first time. Most instructors, they just put in one assessment for the first time and then they just copy it all the way across their courses. You can select between a quiz or a midterm as the type of exam. All mid-year and final exams should be submitted to the web form, and as such cannot be selected as a type when adding an assessment. You'll find if you try to add something in the final exam period, it will be blocked out and won't let you do it. So that should be a pretty good indication that you can't add a final, but if you're finding that you're having trouble with it, just reach out to me or Katie or Max, my other colleagues at the exams office, and one of us will make sure that you get your final exam submitted appropriately, and then we'll handle everything Ventus related from there. As with copying the assessment, you can select all the sections you'd like, or just one to enter the date and time. So for example, if you are in Psych 100 and you have section 1 taking one quiz on one day and section 700 taking a quiz on another day, you can parse those sections out and have them in different assessments. Again, you'll just need to click that checkbox and press the green submit button. So super easy, super straightforward, and you should get an email receipt right away saying, hey, this is the information you put in. So just double check that, make sure everything's right, and then you can go from there. Once you've added the assessment to Ventus, details needed for the administration of the assessment still need to be added. Find your assessment in the accordion tab for delivered by exams office paper-based. That's if you're doing a delivered by one. If it's scheduled by, then obviously you're going to click on that accordion tab. Assessments that still need the relevant details are marked as incomplete in the assessment details column. To add these details, you're going to click on the blue edit/upload button here. That's going to take you to this page here. And for this page, we require these assessment details to be added at least 2 weeks before the assessment, or it will lock you. You can always reach out to us and we'll enter them manually, but it's just a little easier for everybody involved if you enter them either right when you add the assessment or at least 2 weeks ahead of time. For the actual physical test and the upload of the test, if you're doing that, it only needs to be 3 days ahead of time. It's just these details here have to be filled out, just so we have appropriate time to get everything printed and together, so paperwork and things like that. So section 1 here is the assessment details. These are printing instructions, so if you want the exam printed double-sided, you will put it here. And extra information, so anything you would like us to know that doesn't fit somewhere else, like students are allowed to bring a computer. That's not allowed, but that was a bad example. So extra information, just anything that doesn't really fit in one of the other boxes, you can pop it in there. Contact information for you and a secondary contact if needed. So this is obviously going to be your contact information, and then this is going to be a secondary one if you want to, usually a TA or a departmental admin. And this secondary contact info also allows us to know who is authorized to pick up the exam. So if you're not going to pick it up yourself, you want a departmental admin to do it, you can pop them in here, and they'll be listed as one of the people who can pick it up. Material required for the exam, answer booklets. You can click yes or no, and if you click yes, we'll provide the answer booklets. They're just the regular blue, like 4-page ones. And then Scantrons, that will be provided by the instructor. If you're doing a CrowdMark exam, you don't need to click off yes on the Scantron because the CrowdMark's like the Scantron's built in. You can still tick off no, and we won't expect you to provide an extra Scantron for that. Any allowed aids. So selecting any of the radio buttons will allow you to specify the type of aid the student is allowed to bring for the assessment. So for calculator, it will let you specify if they're allowed to bring a Casio or if they're allowed to bring a Commerce Blue sticker calculator. Formula sheet, that will just ask you for the details that you have for the formula sheet, so like an 8x11 sheet of paper. If they're allowed to bring any notes, if they're allowed to bring any textbooks, and if so, which one, and others. So if you have like molecular models that are allowed, you can enter that there, and we'll know that they're allowed to have those. And all of this information basically goes to our proctors in the hall, just so if there's an emergency, they can let you know, and so they can properly prepare the exam for the student. Once complete, there's going to be a little blue submit assessment details button down here. You're just going to click that. That will save the details, and then our office will be able to implement those going forward. There's a second part to this page that comes up, and it is the uploading assessment files. So with Ventus, you can upload assessment documents directly to the system rather than emailing them to us or dropping them off at the exams office in person. This is done through the edit upload page where we just entered the assessment details. It's at the very bottom below everything else. When we click on the blue upload a file button here, a pop-up opens inside the page, this guy here, allowing us to upload the file to the assessment. You can choose to apply the document to all students in the course or just one by selecting them in the drop-down available. So for example, some students have a accommodation for a memory aid. So let's say that you want to just upload the memory aid for that student. You'd click them in the drop-down, you'd choose your file, you'd choose your purpose and add any comments. So this is the memory aid for this student, and then you click upload here. You can also just click off applies to all students belonging to this course if it's just the test for everybody. Underneath the purpose, you want to select if it's a new file that you're uploading, a supplemental file, so a formula sheet for the whole class, for example, or a replacement for a file you've already uploaded. If it's a replacement that you're uploading, it will ask you to select the document that you're replacing, and then it will overwrite it. So our office will still be able to retrieve the old document, but we can see that you've uploaded the new one, and we'll use that one instead. And then when you have filled this all out and you're happy with what you've seen, you can click upload here, and that will upload it to the assessment, and it will attach it down here so you can see the file name, all the information that you gave us. And then it defaults to not notifying the professor because we assume that you know that you just uploaded it and you don't need 60 email receipts telling you that, hey, you uploaded a file, because you probably know you did. So that's the gist of uploading assessment files. Super easy, same as uploading a file to anywhere else. All right. So we're going to talk about adding assessments scheduled by the exams office. So this is the one that we're just scheduling. We're not actually delivering, or we're not administering it. We just require a few more details just so we can make sure that we're accurately capturing student conflicts. So in addition to the type and duration of the assessment, we require you to enter whether you're using remote proctoring, if there's a window of access for the exam, and the length of that window of access. So essentially this lets us know, are you using Examity, whatever. Sometimes faculties reach out to us and ask if instructors have requested remote proctoring instead of, because they can't track that overall, and it's quite tedious for them to get 60 emails telling them, hey, we require remote proctoring, so they'll use this as a guide for that. You should still let your faculty know, but this kind of acts as a centralized location for it. A window of access just lets us know, hey, do the students have 24 hours to complete this, or is it like at a set time that they're supposed to do it? This is helpful for if there's conflicts, like if a student has the accommodation for one exam per calendar day. If the window of access is 24 hours, we don't need to worry about that because they have an entire calendar day to finish the exam. The checkbox before submission is a little different as well. It lets you know that the implementation of online assessments is ultimately on the instructor, and that our office can only schedule the assessment, not provide further support. So we can't go into OnQ and add accommodations or anything like that for you. That would have to be up to you or your TA. This just says that you're acknowledging that we don't have the ability to do that. So once you've added your accommodations, your student accommodations will be added as well, as long as the student has signed up to be opted in automatically. So all students are automatically opted in, but they can opt out of that opt-in process if they want to. So if you're finding a student isn't showing up on here, it might be that they just have opted out of opting in. So that's usually the most likely case. There are very few students who actually have done that, but you might get that random one who has. So don't panic if they're not in there. Just reach out to them and say, hey, did you mean to not have your accommodations for this assessment? Because normally, no, they haven't meant to. They've just forgotten to opt in. So viewing your student accommodations is super easy. I'm just going to show you. Yep. So on this page here, the assessment details page, right below our edit upload button, we have our little turquoise students button. If we click on that, then we get this pop up here. So this is what a student is going to look like before, like the second you've added the test, before our office has touched it. So the date is going to be pending and the location is going to be pending, and their accommodations are going to be listed over here to the right. That's because we haven't touched it, we haven't set a location or anything, so everything is still kind of up in the air. Once the student has been processed, the date and location will update to reflect where and when the student will be writing. So now we've touched it, they're writing on this date from this time, and this is the location where they're writing. So this date might vary from what you've put into Ventus, depending on the student's accommodations. So students who have extra time accommodations but have classes back to back, they'll often be moved so they don't miss their second class. Students who have time of day accommodations or a restriction on the amount of exams that they can take during a day will often be moved as well. You'll find this a lot with engineering courses because their schedules are so jam-packed. They're moved quite a bit. And there are a lot of students who are just have like no evening exams and things like that, so they'll be moved to the next morning. So once this date is finalized, it's most likely correct. You'll see we use military time. If it's ever past 10 p.m. or before 8 a.m., then we've probably made a mistake, so just reach out to us and we'll fix that. The students usually will. They're pretty good about letting us know, but it happens from time to time. So this is what a completed student looks like. This is what a student who's canceled or opted out of their accommodations will look like. So their status will change to assessment was canceled. The date and location time will not clear out by itself. We occasionally will go in and clear it out if we need to, but it basically drops out of our system, so we don't necessarily always do that. So this is the best thing to go off of. Status green basically means, yep, we're good to go, and status red means assessment was canceled, or that they've pulled out and they are writing in class for whatever reason. This happens quite a bit with students who are writing like 10-minute quizzes and their accommodations have been applied, but they've decided not to write with us. They'll cancel it in here and they'll be red and they'll just write with you in class. It's really nothing super crazy to be worried about. It's just a little thing to take note of so you don't panic when you're going and looking at your students. And that's it. Adding assessments are super easy. There's really no like trick to it. It's a little daunting when you first get into it, I think, because it is a brand new system, but there's always really good resources. The CTL has put together a Ventus support website. You should have gotten in the email that I sent out to register for this test or for this session, the link to this website. It's a super great resource. And then always you can reach out to exams@queensu.ca. That's me, Katie, and Max. We're all kind of handling Ventus all together. So one of us will be here to respond to any questions that you have. And yeah, that is the extent of my presentation. So I guess it's now handing over Sandra for the Q&A session.